The door clicked shut behind me with a finality I didn't expect. No slamming, no shouting, just a quiet, solid latch. I stood there on the porch for a moment, not moving. My suitcase rested at my feet, like a tired old dog worn and scuffed, its handle fraying at the seams. Inside, I imagined them already walking away. Ray would exhale dramatically. Keaton would say, "That went better than I thought," and the baby monitor would crackle somewhere upstairs. They'd talk about dinner next. Chicken or Thai, as if nothing had happened. I bent slowly and picked up my bag. The zipper was slightly open, revealing the top edge of my paperback and a corner of the red folder, just a sliver of truth peeking out. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. That part of me was already long gone. I stepped down onto the path I'd helped pave when they bought this house. It still had the faint chip on the third brick from when Keaton dropped the mailbox post during installation. I remembered it clearly because I'd been the one holding it steady. He was 32 now, grown, married, with his own walls and rules and locks, and apparently no space for me. "We don't have space for you, Mom. You'd be more comfortable elsewhere." That was the line. Polite, rehearsed, delivered like an office memo. I walked to the curb. The sky was heavy with late afternoon clouds, and the trees whispered above like they knew. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I adjusted my grip on the suitcase and shifted the red folder inside. It was still there. Still mine. So was the name on the deed typed neatly next to his. 49%. That's what I had. Not enough to live in peace, but just enough to change everything. "All right," I whispered. My turn. I called for a cab. It arrived in 7 minutes. I climbed in, gave the driver the name of a motel off the highway, and didn't say another word. It was 10 months ago, almost to the day, when I slid the check across their kitchen table. Keaton stared at it, like it might vanish. Ray's hand flew to her mouth, then to her heart. She cried. Not the kind of crying that's quiet and stunned, but the loud, shaking kind, like something had finally broken free inside her. I remember reaching out and touching her wrist lightly. "Use it," I said. "Put down the full deposit. It's your future. It's your home." They'd been turned down for the full mortgage just days earlier. The bank said they needed a larger down payment, better reserves. I didn't blink. That $160,000 came from James's life insurance, the last real thing he left behind. I had plans for it once, but those changed when Keaton called and said, "Mom, we're stuck." He promised me everything that afternoon. "You'll always have a place with us. No more living alone. You won't ever need to lift a finger again." Ray nodded through her tears, clutching my hand like I'd saved her life. We closed on the house 3 weeks later. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, a white kitchen with marble countertops, and a yard lined with cedar fencing. I moved into the downstairs guest room, the one without a window or closet or any real privacy. The bathroom was a half bath, no shower. But I told myself I didn't need much. Just space to sleep and the sound of family again. I brought 2 suitcases, a folded quilt, and the photo of James in his Navy uniform. That red folder containing my copy of the deed stayed tucked at the bottom. Out of sight, out of mind. I didn't come to hold power. I came to belong. At first, it felt like I did. Keaton made me coffee in the mornings. Ray helped me set up my phone on their Wi-Fi. There was laughter-shared dinners, late-night movies with bowls of popcorn on the floor. But all that changed faster than I expected. At first, we pretended to be a family. Ray showed me how to connect to the thermostat and helped link my phone to their Wi-Fi, though she let out a long sigh each time I asked a question. We shared one dinner that week, baked salmon and a frozen vegetable medley at the table Ray had decorated with linen napkins and a vase of artificial peonies. They didn't invite me to eat with them again. I didn't push. I tried to be invisible, to be helpful without hovering. I wiped counters, folded throw blankets, and watered their ferns without being asked. But the house slowly began to stiffen around me, like a guest overstaying her welcome. One morning, I went to get yogurt from the upstairs fridge and found a silver padlock on the handles. Ray caught me staring at it and said it was for meal prepping. Then she turned and walked away. Later that week, I asked Keaton if I could put up a floating shelf in the laundry room to hold my detergent and cleaning rags. He rubbed his eyes, muttered something about overcomplicating the space, and changed the subject. The shelf never went up. Then came the jokes. Ray telling her friends over speakerphone, "It's like I live with 2 kids and a grandma." Laughter crackled in the background. I was standing 10 feet away, folding bath towels. I told myself she didn't mean it, that people speak differently to their friends. But it stayed with me anyway. That sentence scraped against something I'd tried hard to protect. One afternoon, I came in from the garden and saw a stack of catalogs spread across the kitchen island. Bright colors, soft pastels. Photos of cribs. Mobile's muslin blankets, a headline that read, "Turn your den into a dream nursery." I flipped one page and saw Ray's scribbles. "Downstairs den crib fits here. Paint, soft rose or sage." I stood there with dirt still under my fingernails. The catalogs open like invitations I hadn't received. I didn't say anything, just quietly put the catalogs in a neater stack and walked back to my room. It happened on a Tuesday so gray the sky looked like brushed steel. Ray was already in the kitchen when I walked in. Arms folded tight across her chest. Her lips pressed into a polite line that didn't quite reach her eyes. The dishwasher hummed behind her, the only sound in the room. She didn't waste time. "We think it's time you looked for something more permanent." Her voice was calm, even rehearsed. "It's for your comfort and ours." Keaton stepped in a moment later holding his coffee like it was just another morning. He didn't look at me. He just hovered by the doorway, eyes on the floor. "We just don't have space anymore." The words landed softly like feathers, but I felt every one of them drive straight into the center of my chest. I stood there blinking once, maybe twice. Then I walked past them and reached for the coffee pot. Poured myself a cup. I took a slow sip. "No rush. I'll be out by tonight," I said. Ray blinked. Keaton nodded, already turning away, as if crossing something off a list. I went to my room and began packing. No theatrics, just motion. My hands knew what to do, even if my heart hadn't caught up yet. I folded my quilt, wrapped the photo of James in a clean shirt, slid my paperbacks into the front zipper. I reached into the closet floor and pulled out the red folder. It was dusty, untouched. Inside the deed. My name just below Keaton's. Co-owner. 49%. I placed it carefully beside my medication and zipped the suitcase shut. Outside the window, the yard swayed with wind. I could hear Ray's voice upstairs. Something about calling the carpet cleaners. Keaton was on a Zoom call. The baby monitor blinked faintly from the kitchen counter. I stood for a moment in the center of that small, borrowed room, then reached for my bag and carried it to the front door without a sound. The motel smelled like damp carpet and lemon-scented cleaner, but it was quiet, and the lock worked. I paid cash for 3 nights and declined housekeeping. I didn't want anyone touching my things. Not the framed photo, not the red folder. I lined up my shoes by the wall, folded my coat over the single chair, and sat on the bed without turning on the television. That night, I pulled out the deed and laid it flat across the desk. I made 5 copies at the front office printer, one for me, one for a lawyer if it came to that, and 3 for people who might try to pretend I didn't exist. I tucked them into a file envelope, sealed it, and slid it under the mattress. At 9:42 the next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I nearly let it go to voicemail. "Ms. Cole," a man's voice said. This is Brad from Carolina Private Lending. You're listed as a co-owner on a property at 147 Willow Ridge Drive. I could feel my pulse steady. Yes, I said. There's been a default. Your son took out a $90,000 business loan last year. The house was the collateral. He's missed several payments. We've issued 3 notices. He's in breach. I blinked once. Send me the paperwork, I told him. It arrived within 20 minutes. I sat at the desk with a blue pen, the same kind I used to sign Keaton's permission slips when he was in 5th grade, and signed every line with a hand that didn't shake. The release form gave up my legal claim, triggering foreclosure. It was a decision made not out of spite, but clarity. I had invested. They had evicted. Brad called again later that afternoon to confirm receipt. Foreclosure will proceed, ma'am. You won't be contacted further. Thank you, I said. I hung up and set the phone down gently, face down. I didn't call Keaton. I didn't tell him what I'd done. I just sat there with my hands folded in my lap and listened to the silence I'd been denied for months. 2 days after I signed the release, the bright orange notice went up on their front door. I didn't see it in person. I didn't have to. A neighbor posted a photo in the community Facebook group. Tape curling at the corners, bold black lettering, foreclosure, pending lockout. Someone had tagged Ray beneath the photo, asking if it was a mistake. She responded within minutes. We're being sabotaged by someone we trusted. Legal trickery. We opened our home and got betrayed. Then came the TikTok. Ray stood in front of a packed U-Haul mascara, running hand cradling her belly. Evicted by my mother-in-law, the caption read. Her voice trembled as she talked about kindness, generational trauma, and how all she wanted was peace. It got 60,000 views by morning. I didn't reply. I didn't comment. I opened my folder instead. I took a photo of the deed, my name in bold beside Keaton's. I snapped the receipt from the day I wired $160,000 to their escrow account. I attached all to an email and sent them to exactly 3 people, Pastor Leland, who'd married them in that very house. My cousin Meredith, who always believed the best in everyone, and Ray's employer, whose name was listed on her LinkedIn. No subject line, no explanation, just facts. Within an hour, Meredith texted me, "Oh, that was it. Nothing more." I didn't need more. I just needed the silence to change shape. By sunset, Ray's post had been taken down, but the comments lived on. Dozens of them screenshotted and passed around like gossip at a family barbecue. People asking questions. People remembering things. People drawing lines. Not once did I speak. Not once did I defend myself. That night, I walked to the vending machine at the motel, bought a can of ginger ale, and drank it on the steps while the breeze rolled through. In the morning, someone else came knocking. He knocked just after 2 in the afternoon. I saw him through the peephole jacket, wrinkled eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door halfway and stepped aside. Keaton didn't smile. He just said, "Hi, Mom," like we were meeting for coffee instead of standing in the wreckage he created. I let him sit at the small round table. I stayed by the window. I messed up, he started. Ray's overwhelmed. The baby's coming, and I panicked. I should have told you about the loan. I should have stopped her from saying those things. I know we pushed you. I said nothing. Just listened. He seemed grateful for the silence, mistaking it for softness. Then he reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a manila folder, slid it across the table. "I just need you to sign something. It's nothing big, just a limited power of attorney. It'll let me talk to the lender directly, negotiate better terms, maybe freeze the process. It gives me access to the accounts tied to the property." My name was tied to one of those accounts. He didn't look at me as he spoke, just down at the paper like the words were safer there. I walked over and flipped the folder open. 3 pages, full of clean legal language. One paragraph buried on the second page, authorization for financial access to jointly held assets. Mine. I closed the folder slowly. "You'll lose everything if you don't help," he said. I met his eyes for the first time that day. "You already did." I pointed to the door. Keaton stood. He didn't argue, didn't beg, just walked out the way he came in, shoulders, heavy mouth pressed into a thin, confused line. She knocked just after sunset, 2 soft taps on the door, then nothing. I opened it a crack, and there she was, Ray. Hair pinned back sloppily, dark circles under her eyes, and a bundled pink blanket in her arms. The baby stirred a quiet whimper, escaping, before settling back into sleep. "Her name's Eden," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "She's yours too. Please, we don't know what else to do." I didn't answer. My eyes drifted to the bag slung over her shoulder, cream leather gold hardware. The kind I'd seen in catalog ads at the motel lobby. Price tag, nearly $1,000. "Can I come in?" she asked, shifting her weight. "I just want to talk." 5 minutes. I let the door open halfway. She stepped inside slowly, like she didn't know the rules anymore. She looked around the tiny room and gave a weak smile. "You still like it cold in here, huh?" I didn't respond. She sat on the edge of the bed and bounced Eden gently. Her voice broke in places. "We screwed up. I said things I shouldn't have. We didn't know how fast everything would fall apart." I nodded once, just to let her keep talking. "Our accounts are frozen. Phones will be shut off by Monday. We failed a credit check for the rental. Keaton's not sleeping. I don't know what we're supposed to do." And then I saw it. The blinking red light just visible in the side pocket of the diaper bag. A recording dot. I stepped closer. "That's new," I said, pointing to the bag. Ray's eyes widened for half a second. "It was a gift," she said too quickly. "No," I said flatly. "That light. You're recording this." She froze. Just for protection. "I'm not your content," I told her. "I'm not your storyline, and I'm not your ATM." She stood slowly. "She's your granddaughter." "No," I said. "She's your daughter. Raise her better than you treat people." I opened the door. Ray left without another word. That night, I didn't sleep, but I started writing. The courthouse was quiet that morning, almost reverent, like it understood why I was there. I carried the folder under my arm, each page neatly labeled. I didn't bring anger with me, just facts. The clerk didn't blink when she read the supporting documents. Text messages. Financial transactions. Audio suspicion, attempted coercion. She stamped the forms and told me I'd hear back in 2 days. I thanked her and walked out with my shoes echoing down the tiled hallway. Back at the motel, I packed again. But this time, it wasn't out of urgency. It was forward motion. By the weekend, I'd signed a rental agreement on a small condo near the coast. 2 bedrooms, no stairs, a breeze off the balcony, and just enough space for silence to feel like a blessing, not a punishment. I made 3 donations the first week I moved in, 1 to a local shelter for women over 50 escaping financial abuse, 1 to the animal rescue I used to volunteer for, and 1 to a community literacy program in my husband's name. Each check was signed with the same blue pen I'd once used to sign away my piece of the house. Then I sat down and rewrote my will. Keaton's name came out with a single strike of the pen. I split the remainder between the nonprofits. Not out of spite, but because I needed to make sure what I had left would never be used against me again. I scanned the documents, attached them to an email, and sent them to my attorney with one simple instruction. If he contests anything, release all of it, publicly. No warnings. I didn't expect him to fight. But I knew the version of him that could. The version that cried as a boy, then grew into a man who saw my help as an obstacle. This wasn't revenge. It was a shield I should have picked up years ago. That night, as I stood in my new kitchen unpacking dishes, my phone buzzed once. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. The condo wasn't big, but it felt wide. Not in square footage, but in the way light poured in through the sliding glass door and didn't feel like it needed permission. There were no padlocks on the fridge, no footsteps pacing above me, no passive sighs filling the corners of the room, just the sound of my own breath, the rustle of the coastal wind, and the soft clink of my coffee spoon in the mug I finally liked using again. I had unpacked slowly over the last few days, one drawer at a time, not rushing to prove anything to anyone, just moving in like I belonged, because for the first time in months, I did. That morning, I sat on the small porch with my cup of coffee and watched a heron glide low over the complex courtyard. A neighbor waved from across the walkway. I nodded back, no words exchanged, just peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was from Ray. No emojis, no hashtags, just a flat sentence sitting in the middle of the screen. "We lost everything. Congrats." I stared at it for a moment, then pressed delete. No reply. No reaction. That night, after washing the dishes and folding my cardigan over the back of the chair, I opened my notebook, the same one I had carried since the motel. I turned to a blank page and wrote only one line. They said there was no space for me. Turns out I never needed theirs. I set the notebook down and felt something leave me. Not pain, not anger, just the weight of pretending I had to earn space in a place I helped build. I poured myself another cup of coffee and stepped back out onto the porch. The air was cool, the stars clear, and my name was no longer attached to any home that didn't want me. Inside, the kettle hummed softly behind me. I reached for the light switch, flipped it off, and let the calm take up all the space they once said they didn't have.